Welcome back. Now, with the failure rate of small businesses in South Africa dismally high, Finweek thought it would be interesting to ask the experts just how important is it to do thorough market research before embarking on a new venture or launching a new product. At the desk, we have Kristia van Heerden Finweek.com editor, Professor Carel van Aardt Research Director at Unisa's Bureau of Market Research, and we also have Donald Mokoena, Business Advisor for Seda's Tshwane branch. Thank you again for everyone coming back to the desk. Perhaps let's come to you first, Carel. Oftentimes you'll see articles that will say that without market research a business is doomed to failure. Is this doom and gloom a reflection of the truth?
Yes, absolutely. We've been doing quite a lot of tracking studies where we've been conducting research on businesses from startup as they actually age. And what we found, for example, is that when you look at businesses surviving from year 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, etc., for every year that they survive, there are different reasons why they fail. But we found, for example, that especially from year 0 to year 1, the main reason for businesses failing is that they don't prepare good operational plans, business plans, marketing plans, and financial plans.
Carel, maybe I get the sense that there's a very poor sense of qualitative and quantitative research when people start their businesses.
Yeah.
The idea of research is I ask 5 people around a table over a couple of beers and say, I'm going to go and I'm going to start a business doing this. Is it a good idea? And everyone, of course, says, yes, it's a fantastic idea. There's just going to be a natural bias to it. Do you think that most people who start their businesses actually have an appreciation of what real quantitative and real qualitative research actually is?
No, they don't, because we actually had a look at how many of those businesses that we've been tracking over the years actually have a business plan, a detailed business plan. It's less than 10%. Of those businesses that do have business plans, quite a lot of them only drafted those business plans because the banks, etc., required them. And we actually saw that they were lying to themselves in those business plans, and that it wasn't really an objective risk analysis. Maybe just on that, just to explain what market research actually entails and what should be done, if I may. Sure. In any market analysis, you've basically got 3 components. You've got to have an understanding of the demand out there and the structure of demand. And quite a lot of businesses actually don't go out and actually determine what is the spending power, what, for example, are the expenditure needs of client out there. Then you've got the supply side, trying to understand, for example, what can you produce? How efficiently can you produce that? What is your competitors? But then comes the most basic part, that quite a lot of businesses do understand supply and demand to some extent. But the most important part is the interface between supply and demand. For example, understanding what you'll be contributing in a unique way. For example, what will be your competitive advantage. And the bulk of businesses don't understand that. Also, on the tracking studies that we found, those businesses that do survive the first year, during that latter part of the first year, they start designing new business plans, and often that's a strong predictor of longer term survival.
Donald, I want to jump in there. You look at your entrepreneurs that are within the Seda universe, essentially. Do they have the resources to be able to do proper market research when they're putting together businesses? And if so, what are the ways that they're getting around? How are they actually going through the research process?
Yeah, actually what we do at Seda, we assist our small businesses to come up with market research. We connect our own analysis first, and then we'll determine to say, okay, this is the particular client that needs assistance with market research. Then we also facilitate and assist them in terms of capacitating them in terms of being able to undertake and do their own market research. That in itself will, in the later stage, assist them to do their own rather than to rely on outside people to be able to do those researches.
Carel, is it ever too late to do your market research? I mean, if you start as an entrepreneur, you start by yourself, you don't really think it through.
No.
Now you're 3 years into your business. Is it too late now to do your market research?
It's never too late. What we've actually found is that quite a lot of businesses actually start up either not with a business plan or with a weak one. They really struggle. And during those struggles, they tend to find a niche for themselves or possible competitive advantage, and then actually draw up detailed business plans of how to realize that. But it's never too late.
I want to go to the end process after the data has been collected and the analysis has been done, Donald. How do entrepreneurs deal with the findings if the findings say it's a no-go area? So they spent all this time putting effort into market research and refining the idea, but what the analysis is that this is not such a good idea. Is it something that they readily accept?
Yeah, I guess having mentioned that, it should be noted that, market research that has been undertaken, the aim thereof is to determine and to measure the potential sales that may be derived from that particular market. That's one. Two, you're also undertaking that to see who are the industry players in that particular market. Who will be your potential buyers? Who will be your sellers? What are the market trends in that particular industry? And so on. What are the regulatory requirements that you may need in order to be tapping into that particular market? And all that information, after it has been gathered, it should actually be viewed and assessed in an objective manner. If it needs to be adjusted, that market research, let it be adjusted. If it says it's a no-go area, you may discard it and start something else, because it's not a matter of saying you have to stick to it by virtue of having maybe invested money onto that particular market research.
But how important is it to have actually worked in the industry that you're researching? Because I think that, if I've worked in publishing all my life and I decide I now want to start a tracking company, it's easy for me to go and pull the imperial financial results and say, look how much money is made in tracking. But unless I've worked in tracking and actually understand the niches of it, I can make my research say whatever it wants to say. How important is that industry experience when you're looking and you're talking to the entrepreneurs within your network?
Yeah, I think the assessment, when we look at our entrepreneurs, we assess them both the type of business that he wants to venture into, and we also look at his personal attributes. Does he possess the necessary skill that is required to venture into the market? Did he work before in that particular industry? Is it a new industry at all? And if we realize that he needs maybe assistance in terms of that, he needs to be capacitated in terms of that, that's when now we take those people through the processes.
Could you maybe give us some advice for a small entrepreneur who is by himself, who wants to do a bit of market research before he goes to see a professional? I mean, people don't often know that you have the option to see somebody who can help you. What are actual tips that entrepreneurs can use when conducting market research?
Yeah, actually, our offices, I'm from Seda Tshwane branch. We are accessible to everyone who wants to access that particular assistance. We are running even sessions wherein we tell them what a market research is, how to conduct one. We also give them guidelines to say, this is how you should be, this is the type of information that you should put into the market research. That market research can be viewed later on by a professional, a business advisor who's going to say, we are on the right track, we are not on the right track. We can even source external services to say, this needs somebody who's from outside to assist. We can also do that. So the ultimate aim thereof is to capacitate them, because we must also bear in mind that the outcome of a market research, that it looks like a piece of information, but like Prof earlier on mentioned, it is also going to form part of that what you call your business plan later on. It's going to, and also help them as well to be able to come up with their own company profile. All these little bits and bits of information at the end of the day is going to be part of that business.
But Carel, one of my concerns still is when you're actually doing this market research, do you need to be independent? Do you need an independent person? Do you need somebody, the people that are collecting this data? Because as I say, it's easy for me to say tracking, I can make money in tracking, but if I don't know anything about it, by the same token, if I'm not independent, but I've convinced myself that I've worked in the industry and there must be money to be made, how do I form that team that actually does a decent set of research?
I would very strongly recommend that you use an independent person. Just an example of that, we've seen, for example, on your previous question of whether you need to understand a specific industry to be successful. And the answer to that is a definitely yes and a definite no. It's a definite yes that you'll probably succeed if you do it via facilitated entrepreneurship, like, for example, franchising. And what happens with franchising is that you buy into an existing business plan with independent people. But one of the biggest problems with quite a lot of people compiling their own business plans is that quite a lot of them haven't got sufficient skills to be an entrepreneur, they haven't got sufficient business skills, etc., and they're too much involved for themselves. So what often happens if you've got a good independent person, the first thing that person needs to do is to evaluate the entrepreneur to say, can you succeed? What are your own shortcomings?